Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you want to learn how to make this sweater, keep watching. I'm going to give you guys a step-by-step tutorial on this granny square throw over. This is a sort of beginner friendly tutorial. You can always look up how to do certain stitches if you don't know how to do it for this tutorial, but I tried to keep it as beginner friendly as possible. So I hope you guys are able to keep up if you are a beginner, and comment anything. If you have any questions, just comment them. But yeah, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so the materials you'll need for this sweater are, of course, your yarn, and you can use as many colors as you like. I'm going to be using 3. And then you'll need a crochet hook. I'm using a 5.75 millimeter crochet hook, and I recommend using a bit of a bigger crochet hook, just so then your sweater is a little bit bigger and you don't have to do as much work. And then you'll need scissors and a darning needle. So the way the sweater is built is we make 2 parts of the sweater, and this is what each part will look like, and then at the end we'll connect it. So what we're going to start is this part right here, and we're just going to go out. So you're going to start off with your first color, and you're going to do a magic ring. So to do a magic ring, you hold your yarn in your thumb and your ring finger, and then you wrap it around your 2 front fingers. So you make like an X, and then you're going to go under the first loop and grab the second loop, pinch it, and take your fingers out. Then you're going to chain 3. And you're going to work 2 double crochets into the magic ring. And that right there is 1 cluster. We're going to be making 6 clusters of 3 double crochets. So next you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to work 3 double crochets into the magic ring. And that's our second loop. We're going to do this 4 more times. So chain 1, work 3 double crochets into the magic ring. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into the magic ring. And chain 1, 3 double crochets into the magic ring. And then 1 more. And so now you should have 6 clusters, and you can count them by finding the gaps in between. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to pull your tail to close your magic ring. And then you're going to chain 1, and you're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain of your round. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you count from the bottom, you go to the 3rd chain and you slip stitch into it. Now you can change color for your next row, or you can keep the same color. I'm going to keep the same color, and I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to work 2 double crochets into this first gap. The chain 3 counts as the first double crochet, so we're going to work 2 more to make a cluster of 3. And then I prefer not to chain 1, but if you want to chain 1, you can. It doesn't make much of a difference, but I just think it's faster if I don't, so I just don't. And then I go into the next gap where we chained 1 in the previous row, and I'm going to work 3 double crochets. Then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to work 3 double crochets into that stitch again. Since it's a corner stitch, I chain 1 in between each cluster of 3. And for this round, which is round 2, all of the gaps are corner stitches. So in the next gap, you work 3 double crochets. A chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets into the same gap. And then same thing with the next. You work 3, chain 1, 3. And you're just going to keep doing this all the way around. So I'm back to where I started, and since we only worked 3 into there where we started, we're going to work 3 more. Then you're going to chain 1 and slip stitch into the 3rd stitch, the 3rd chain. And you should have 6 sides, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to show you guys how to do a color change. So this is how I do it. There's multiple ways you can do it, but I just find this is fastest. I just take my new color and then I loop it around my hook, leaving a tail so I can work over it. And I pull it through my loop, and then I pull both tails tight. Then you're going to chain 3, and we're just going to continue what we were doing. We're going to work 2 into the gap, because the chain 3 works as a double crochet. And then we're going to go into the next gap, and you see, this is how you tell the difference between corner stitches and regular stitches. A regular stitch just has 3 and then a chain 1, and then there's like a little cluster in between it, and then 3, whereas a corner has 3, chain 1, 3, all in the same gap. You should notice it as you're working. In the regular non-corner parts, you're just going to work 3 double crochets. No chain, no nothing, just 3 double crochets. And then no chain or anything, go into the next space, which is a cluster. So in the clusters we work 3 double crochets, a chain 1, and then 3 double crochets. Then the next space is just a regular cluster, so we're just going to work 3 double crochets. And if you're working over your tails at this point, you can just cut your last color off. And then the next space is a corner, so I'm going to work 3, a chain 1, and then 3 more. Next we just have a regular space, so we're just going to work 3 double crochets. And then next we have a corner, so we'll work our 3, chain 1, 3. And you just continue this pattern. For this row, it's every other row that's a corner. And as your patterns go on, it's going to be every 2 rows, every 3 rows, every 4 rows, and so on and so forth. So I've made it back around, and this is a corner stitch, so I'm going to work 3 double crochets into it. A chain 1, and then slip stitch into that 3rd chain. Now I'm just going to continue working these rows. If you have it, you can leave and continue working until it can fit around your arm, which I will show you guys what I mean by that. But if you still need a little bit of guidance, I'll do this last row with you guys, and then I'll leave you to it. So we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets. The chain counts as 1 double crochet. And then the next stitch is not a corner, so we're just going to work 3 double crochets. The next stitch is also not a corner, so we're just going to work 3 double crochets. And then this stitch is a corner, so we're going to work 3 double crochets, a chain 1, and then 3 double crochets. Then the next 2 spaces are just regular 3 double crochets. And then we have a corner stitch, so we have our 3, a chain 1, and then 3. So work this all the way around, and then I'll come back with you guys to join, and then I'll leave you guys to it. So I made it back around, and I worked 3 double crochets into where we started. I'm going to chain 1 and then slip stitch into that 3rd chain. And now from here, you're just going to keep working. It'll like fold in on itself a little bit, and that's okay. You can kind of see the cardigan taking shape, or the sweater, sorry. And this is what it'll look like, but it just continues to grow. And what you're going to do is you're going to make enough rows until this arm length, like not the length, but the width, fits your arm where you want it to be. And again, I'll show you guys so you're not confused or anything. But yeah, you're just going to keep working. And it's the same thing, just 3 double crochets into each stitch. And in the corners, you work your 3, a chain 1 and 3, regular 3, chain 1, 3, regular 3, chain 1, 3, and just keep going around and around and around. And it'll work out pretty fast if you just put a show on, throw something on, keep working, and you'll be there before you know it. So don't let this become a whip. Let's get it done. So yeah, I'll see you guys whenever I'm complete with my rows. Okay guys, so I just did a couple of rows, and this is what I mean by it should fit around your arm. So basically, if you were to fold it like this, so it's a sleeve, you should be able to comfortably, like if this were sewn together, you should be able to comfortably slip your arm through. Y'all, it's hard to demonstrate, but basically you should be able to have your arm fit through here, and you can like put this against one of your favorite sweaters and compare the size. But I ended up doing 13 rows, and now we're gonna start working on the sleeve, which is basically working the 3 double crochets in each, the granny stitch basically, around and around and around until the sleeve grows to the length that you want. So I'll show you guys how to do that right now. So before we start working the sleeve, we have to connect this top part of the arm, and to do that, we're not going to sew it, we're going to granny stitch it closed. So just start your row like regular, and instead of working all the way around like we normally would, we're going to work 4 sides. So here's 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then we're going to leave the last two sides alone. So I'm going to work my 4 sides, and I'll come back to show you guys how we're going to work the next 2 sides. Okay, so once you've done 4 sides, as you can see, I have 2 remaining sides that have not been worked. You're going to fold your sweater in half to where it's like a sweater, like a sleeve. And then when you fold it in half, you're going to have your side that you're working on top, and you're going to, whenever you work that last side, you're going to make sure you only work 3 double crochets into that corner. Don't work the next 3 in that same corner. So this is how you should have ended. So we're going to pick back up, chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch into the back, the corner of the back side of that arm. But we're not going to slip stitch it like this, we're going to slip stitch on the other side. So I don't really know how to explain it, so I'm just going to show you guys visually. You're going to come up behind that stitch, pull your loop, and then pull that through a loop. So you just kind of slip stitched behind. And then you're going to continue to work 3 double crochets into just the first part of the thing. You know what I mean? So I'm going to work 3 double crochets into here. And then I'm going to work another slip stitch, but I'm going to work it in the next gap of the back row. So again, come behind it, grab your yarn, slip stitch, and then you're going to come back to the front and work 3 double crochets into the next gap. And I'm just going to continue this pattern of going to the next gap in the back, coming around behind, slip stitching, and then coming around back in the front and working 3 double crochets. I'll show you guys one more time. You come to the back of the sweater, go around back, go through the hole, pull your loop, slip stitch, come back to the front, 3 double crochets. So I'm going to continue this all the way down, and I'll meet you guys back. So I made it to the end, and I'm going to show you guys how to work the last stitch. So I just did my slip stitch into the back row. Now I'm going to work 3 into this corner stitch in the front. And then I'm going to slip stitch in between the chain and the first double crochet of the back row. And there you go. Now we're gonna start working on the sleeve because we've just connected this. You can try it on, make sure you like it. If you don't, you can always restart. But yeah, now we're gonna start working up the sleeve. So to work up the sleeve, you're just gonna keep going how you are, but you're gonna chain 3. And then you're gonna work your first 3 cluster in between where we slip stitched in the last row. So I'm gonna work 2 because that chain 3 counts as 1. Then I'm going to go straight into this middle cluster and work 3. And yeah, we're just going to go around working 3. There's no corners here, so you don't have to worry about doing any 3 chain 1 3. You're just going to be working your 3 clusters around and around and around until you get the length that you would like for your sleeve. And I'll show you guys how to end off and start a new row, and then after that I'll leave you guys to it to work on it on your own. So I've just made it to the end of my row, and I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that 3rd chain, chain 3, and then work my 2 double crochets into the stitch that I just chained 3 in. And then I'm just going to continue to work around and around and around until my sleeve fits me the way I want it to. Okay, so now that you've gotten the length of the sleeve that you want, we're going to start working on the cuffing. This is optional, but I like to do it just because I like the way it looks. So you can get a new color, or you can just continue with your color. I'm just going to continue with the color I'm using. Actually, never mind. I'm going to change colors because I don't know if I have enough. So what you're going to do is you're going to decrease on every single stitch to tighten the wrist of the sweater. So to do this, you go into the first stitch, and since we chained the very first one, I'm just going to ignore it and go into like the second. And then you pull up a loop, and then you go into the next stitch and you pull up another loop, and then you just pull through all 3, and that's a decrease. You're going to work this all the way around your sleeve. So go into 1 stitch, go into the next stitch. We're not working in any gaps anymore, just double crochets. So again, just go in a stitch, go in the next stitch, pull through all 3, and then just continue working this all the way around your sleeve to tighten the wrist. So I've made it to the end, and I'm just going to decrease in this very last stitch because I like my wrists to be pretty tight. And now we're going to start working on the ribbing. So to start, you're going to chain as tall as you want your ribbing to be. So like this part of your sweater, you're going to chain however tall you want that to be. I chained 6. And then I'm going to single crochet. I'm going to skip the first stitch, go into the next stitch with a single crochet, and just work single crochets down the rest of these. Then you're going to do 2 slip stitches in the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into the stitch after that. Then you're going to turn your work, and you're just going to work. And then we're just going to be working single crochets and back loops only. And since I chained 6, I'm going to be working 5 single crochets. So it's good to keep count of how many single crochets you're supposed to have, just in case you accidentally increase or decrease somewhere, so then you can go back to your original count. So make sure to skip the first 2 because those are where we slip stitched, and then go into both loops of the first single crochet. And then the next single crochet, go back loop only, and back loop only is just the back V. And then just keep working back loop single crochets until you get to the last stitch. And in the last stitch, I work under both loops. So in the first and in the last stitch of my single crochet ribbing, I work in both loops. Now you chain 1, turn your work, and again the first I work under both loops. And then I'm going to be working back loops from here. And then both loops for the last single crochet, and then slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. I'll show you guys one more time. Turn your work, skip those 2 slip stitches, go into the first stitch under both loops, then back loops only for the rest. And then for the very last stitch, go under both loops. Chain 1, turn your work, and just continue this pattern. Remember, the first and last stitch, work under both. In between those, work in the back loops only, and then slip stitch into the row of decreases we did. And then turn your work and continue to work this all the way around until you're back where you started. So once you've made it all the way around, you're going to just chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving a long tail. Then you can pull it through. And now we're just going to sew this armhole shut. So to do this, you'll need your darning needle. And you can go ahead and put it on. And then rather than closing it like this, I'm going to go inside out with it, so then you can't see the seam. Like so. And then you literally just sew it together. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's going to see it, so don't stress too much about it. So once it's sewed and you're on your last pull through, don't pull it all the way through. Pull it enough to where you have a loop, and then you're going to go through that loop twice, and then pull it nice and tight. And then you can just sew in your loose end by going through random stitches in the back. Then cut your yarn. And now we're done with the sleeve. Now we're going to start adding some rows on the side of our sweater so then we can make it a little bit bigger. And to do this, you can start on either side, it doesn't matter, because we're going to work on both sides. You're going to take whatever color you want, and you can start at the bottom or the top, it doesn't matter. I'm going to start at the top. Go ahead and attach your yarn however you like. I just like attaching it by pulling it through and chaining 3. And then I'm going to work, so we're on the open part of the sweater. Now I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the gap. And then I'm going to work my 3 double crochets all the way down, but in this last stitch, I'm only going to work 1 double crochet. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm here at the end, and I'm at a 3 double crochet cluster, and what I'm going to do is work 1 double crochet in between our first chain and our first double crochet. Like so. And then this is basically the part of the sweater that's in the middle, so you can do, I prefer to do 5 rows because you're going to do 5 and then on the next part of the sweater you do 5, so in total it's 10. But if you want your sweater to be a little bit tighter, you can do less. If you want it to be bigger, you could do more. It just depends on whatever you want. But I'm going to be doing 5 rows. And just remember that whenever you end with 1 double crochet, you will start with 3. So in the next row, I will be doing my cluster of 3. And then go all the way down. And since I started with 3, I'm going to end with 1. So just remember that if your stitch ends with the 3 clusters, you're just working 1. But if your stitch starts with a gap, then you're working 3. So yeah, you just keep working back and forth however many rows you want. I'm going to do 5, and that's enough for me. So I just finished all 5 of my rows. I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And then you're just going to repeat however many rows it is that you did onto the other side of the sweater. And as you can see, it just lengthens the body of the sweater. So I'm going to work my 5 rows on this side, and then I'll come back. So I've finished my rows, and now I'm just going to chain 1, cut my yarn, and now you have completed one side of your sweater. So now you're going to redo this entire process for the other half of the sweater, and then come back and I'll show you guys how to put them together. So here's the other half of my sweater. We're going to put the front together, leaving a little bit out so then you can have a collar, and then we're going to put the back together, and then we're going to do the bottom, and then we're done. So to put it together, I'm going to make this the front, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing we did when we did the sleeves, where we had an extra row and then we connected them. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So with your yarn, you're going to connect to whatever sweater you want, whatever side you want, but you're going to connect it with a slip knot, single crochet, whatever you want. I'm just going to go in and chain 3. And then you're going to work your 2 double crochets or your 1 depending on what side you started on your sweater. Then you're going to grab the other half of your sweater and again go behind. This is a little bit confusing, but it's the exact same thing we did for the sleeves. Just go behind and slip stitch. Now I'm going to go into the next stitch of the front one and work my 3. And if you don't want to do this, you can just sew it together. It's the exact same thing, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch. And then do my 3 doubles in the other sweater. And then slip stitch. And then my 3 doubles. Then slip stitch. And just keep doing this until you get to where you want your collar to start. So I'm going to keep working these until I normally do 5 stitches away from the top. So I'll work and then I'll leave like 5 gaps or 5 clusters alone. So I'm going to just keep working until I get about here. So I came all the way up and I left 5 clusters alone. Leave as many as you want alone, and make sure that on your last, where you end off on a slip stitch. So once you slip stitch, you can just chain 1, cut your yarn, and weave it in. And then we have the front of our sweater put together. Now we're going to do the back. And for the back, you're just going to connect it all the way up. So it's just the same exact process. Just do your 3 double crochets into the first gap and then slip stitch into the back half of the sweater. And just continue working these rows until you make it all the way up your sweater. So I'm at the end and there's nowhere for me to work into, so I'm just going to slip stitch into the space that's between, oh I'm so sorry you can't see. I'm going to slip stitch into the space that's in between the chain and the double crochet on both sides. And then chain 1, cut your yarn, and that's that. So we are almost done. We are at the home stretch, y'all. The last things that we're going to do, if you want, add length, but if not, we're just going to be sealing everything off with single crochets. So we're going to start at the bottom, and you can start wherever you want. I like to start in the corner, and I'll just go into a random stitch. And if you're adding length, all you have to do is just connect and work your granny stitch around and around and around until you get the length that you want. But if you don't want length, we're going to end off like this. Just connect your yarn however you connect it, and then we're just going to work single crochets all the way around the bottom of the sweater, just to kind of make your ends look a little neater. So I'm just going to work single crochets in every single stitch, and I will meet you guys when I'm done. You can also add ribbing the same way we added the ribbing on the sleeves. You can add it to the bottom. So once you make it to the end, you're of course going to slip stitch into the first stitch, chain 1, cut your yarn and sew it in, or you could just keep going with multiple rows. I'm just going to do 1 because I'm ready to be finished. So then you just take your darning needle and sew it in. And then the last thing we're going to do is line the neck so that it doesn't look so messy. So you can connect wherever you want. I'm going to connect here at the bottom. You just chain 1 and work single crochets all around the neck. And there's not a lot of places where there's specific stitches, so you just kind of work. Like my rule of thumb is just to work 2 in each gap. 1 or 2, depends on how big the gap is. But yeah, I'm just going to go around the neckline until I make it back where I started with single crochets. So now I'm going to slip stitch into where we started, chain 1, and cut my yarn, leaving a tail so I can weave it in. And then you just get your darning needle and sew it in. Now we're done. You can try on your sweater, and yeah, that is how you make this sweater. I'm gonna try it on for you guys and we're gonna see. Here is the final result. I am in love with the way this turned out, and I hope you guys are too. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, comment any questions or concerns that you may have, and let me know what colors you guys did your sweater in. At first I wasn't liking the colors that I did, but now that it's done, I love the colors. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a new cute sweater. Thanks for watching. Bye.